Welcome back. So, this is my second post on the Seneca Village, and my fascination with it is the way ordinary people made this extraordinary place. So, Seneca Village is in Central Park, was in Central Park. It lasted from 1827 to 1857. It stretched from 82nd to 89th Street, and it was between 7th and 8th Avenue, and it was destroyed by the government of the U.S. People who wanted the park, and they used eminent domain to displace the people who live there. Now, 2/3 of the population there was African Americans, and half of that 2/3 owned property. So, in order to justify the taking away of the land from the people in Seneca Village, the people who wanted the park would say disparage the village as being a poor shanty town, but it was not. There were parts that had shanties. That's the case all over the world, everywhere at all times. But most of the place was either 1-story, 2-story, or even 3-story homes. And the significance of owning property then, especially for Black people, is that New York required that you have property worth $250 in order to vote. And as we're talking about, this was not required by for white people though, just for Black people. So, and as we're talking about owning property, also as we're going to read and go through, we're going to see what was important to them by the buildings and things that were in the village. So I'm sharing about 3 ordinary people and families, and you'll hear as we go along. So the first one is Andrew Williams. Andrew was the first African American to purchase land in Seneca Village in 1825. And his job, he was a shoe shiner, or they call it a boot black. And prior to coming uptown, he lived in downtown Manhattan. And there are parts in downtown Manhattan close to what used to be the slave market, and those areas now, Tribeca and stuff, that you would call them Little Africa back then. So yeah, he moved up, and it's believed he might have been a member of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, because the institution also purchased land in the initial stages. They used their land for burial ground, because Black people were not being allowed anymore to have that burial ground downtown. He purchased 3 lots of land in the area, and he owned those 3 lots of land for 30 continuous years. At 30, when we're able to learn about him because of the information gathered from the census, so 30 years, in 1855, he was now a craftsman, a cartman. And I don't know specifically what that is, but we're told that it's better than being a shoe shine. So he had an ordinary job, and he was able to use his money wisely to gain property. And by that time, he lived in a 2-story intergenerational home with his wife, Elizabeth, and his son, Jeremiah, his daughter-in-law, Anne, and grandson, Elias. He also had another daughter, Ellen, and her husband's name was John Butler, and he was a laborer, and they lived nearby in a shanty. So you see that thing of intergenerational homes, keeping the wealth within the family. Next door to the Williams family was the Landon family, African Americans who rented 3 attached houses and stables from Andrew Zabriskie. These did not own, they rented. The Landon family was comprised of a husband, Josiah, laborer, wife, Dina, and 3 children, Lawrence, Martha, and Mays, and 2 grandchildren, Daniel and Josiah Patterson. A third African American family was the McCollin. The couple is believed to have met in Seneca Village and were early purchasers of land. So at this time, when the census is giving us the information, The husband, Obadiah, was a cook and was married to Elizabeth Harding. And Elizabeth's father also resided with them in the home. Additionally, they had a 6-year-old boarder, and his name was Frederick Riddles. And he was the grandson of Nancy Morris, who had passed away but owned land for a long time. So you see this kind of communal type of living together. This people joined together not only by blood, marriage, but also just community in terms of Frederick Riddles. Then we have the Wilsons, and this family lived next to the All Angel Church, and they were William and Charlotte Wilson, and they had 8 children. William worked as a porter and a sexton, which is the person who helps with the church, cleans the church and stuff. And their house was demolished when the eminent domain, the government, took over the place. But the way it was demolished, the archaeologists were able to excavate and see most of the things intact. So based on the artifacts they gathered, they realized they might not have been wealthy, but they were not poverty stricken either. They had more than they needed. And Seneca Village was also self-sustaining. There were water sources, private gardens, and what they believed to be communal gardens. The people had livestock, and they had horses and stables. Back then, I'm sure it was for transportation as well as cultivating the land. 3 notable places in the village, and a couple exist to today. You have the African Union Church and College School. That was the first one, built in 1840. And it had a small burial ground. The sexton was William Matthews. And College School number 3 was a primary school which was attended by a high percentage of African Americans in Seneca Village. So you see there, they were focused on education. That was owning property, education, family. These are their values. And they needed to separate themselves because though slavery was abolished in 1827 in New York, discrimination, as we see in the laws about voting, continued. Also, we have the AME Zion Church, and a branch of it, though they were the first to buy the land, they bought it for a burial ground. They had their main church was down in the West Village, and they built their church here in 1853. And there we believe they had 100 members, and 50 children attended the school in the basement. And their church was so popular and affluent that they were able to post the notice when they established a church here in the New York Daily Tribune. Another church, AME Zion Church, Mother AME Zion Church, continues to exist. It's on 137th Street. I go there on Sundays. Then we have All Angels Church, and this church was created by the missionary efforts of St. Michael's Episcopal Church, which was located at Amsterdam and 99th Street. And this was a mixed race church with people from European immigrants and African Americans worshiped together here. And this happens to be the only church that was not destroyed and was moved nearby. So what is the message here? We don't need to wait for some great saviors to save us, whatever is going on now in the next 4 years or ever, that people with these little jobs were able to come together. Blue-collar jobs, maybe seen even below blue-collar jobs, and they were able to make this village. Yes, in 1857, it gets demolished, but the memories are here with us. that now, again, as I said in the other video, the way ahead is to think, build together, but do it in a way that the government can't take it away again. Thanks for listening.